The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems, its desperate signal carrying the weight of an entire civilization's final breath. Ambassador Zeth Kari of the Velthon Collective pressed his six-fingered hands against the translation console, his crystalline skin flickering with stress patterns as the message played again. This is the research station Kepler 442b. We are under attack by the Devourers. Our defenses have failed. The colony ships are compromised. 37 million souls aboard. We estimate 6 hours before complete consumption. Any Allied forces in range, please respond. We are the last of our kind. The War Council chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of life support systems. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the curved table, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, chirps, and harmonic vibrations. All of them had the same expression of helpless despair, translated across their alien features. "The Korathi were our finest warriors," chittered Commander Vex Anna, her insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. "If they cannot stop the Devourers, what hope do any of us have?" Fleet Admiral Thorn of the Severian Empire extended his neck frills in a gesture of mourning. "The mathematical certainty is absolute. The Devourers consume matter at a rate of 47,000 tons per standard hour. They have adapted to every weapon we have thrown at them. Energy shields, kinetic bombardments, even our quantum disruptors. All useless." Zeth Kari studied the tactical display floating above the table. The red mass representing the Devourer swarm was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. It moved through space like a living thing, consuming everything in its path: asteroids, space debris, even the very solar radiation around it. Where it passed, space itself seemed darker, as if the universe was being slowly devoured from within. "The nearest collective fleet is 4 days away," he said, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "The Severian task force is 6 days out. Even if we launched every ship we have right now, it would be suicide," finished Captain Mabala of the Zenthari Republic, her blue skin shimmering with bioluminescent worry patterns. "We would arrive to find nothing but empty space and another Devourer swarm, grown fat on Korathi biomass." The beacon continued its desperate broadcast, now joined by individual distress calls from the colony ships. Families saying goodbye, scientists transmitting their final research data, children asking why the stars were going dark. That's when the new signal arrived. At first, it was barely a whisper among the cosmic background radiation. The translation computers struggled with it, spitting out fragments of an unknown language. Then the universal translators kicked in, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a voice speaking in clear, confident tones. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Fleet, aboard the vessel Indomitable. We have received your distress call and are en route to assist. ETA 3 hours and 47 minutes. The silence that followed was deafening. Commander Vexana was the first to speak, her mandibles clicking in confusion. "Earth? I have never heard of this species. Are they part of the Outer Rim territories?" Zeth Kari quickly pulled up the galactic database, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Searching. Searching. Here. Earth. Sol system. 3rd planet from their star. Listed as a pre-contact civilization. According to our last survey, conducted 47 standard years ago, they had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel." "Then how are they here?" Admiral Thorne's neck frills fluttered in agitation. "The nearest human settlement, according to this data, is over 600 light-years from Kepler 442b. The human voice came through again, and this time there was something in it that made every species in the room go quiet. It wasn't fear or desperation like the Korathi transmissions. It was something none of them had heard in months of fighting the Devourers. It was confidence. "Kepler 442b, this is Admiral Chen. We've analyzed your situation and we've got this. Repeat, we've got this." Begin immediate evacuation of non-essential personnel to the far side of the system. We'll handle the cleanup. Captain Mabala's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. Handle the cleanup? Do these humans understand what they're facing? A single Devourer drone can consume a heavy cruiser in minutes. This swarm has consumed 7 star systems. But even as she spoke, new signals were appearing on the tactical display. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. At first, there were only a few contacts, then dozens, then hundreds. "By the ancient void," whispered Zethkari, his crystalline skin shifting to colors that had no name in any language. "They're everywhere." The human fleet was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. The ships were smaller than the massive dreadnoughts favored by the older civilizations. But there were so many of them. Sleek, angular vessels that moved with a coordination that spoke of hive-mind precision, yet each one seemed to pulse with individual purpose. Admiral Chen's voice came through again, now speaking to the Karathi defenders. "Kepler 442b Command, this is Admiral Chen. We're going to need you to pull your ships back about 50,000 kilometers. We're about to try something that's going to get a little messy." The desperate Karathi commander's voice cracked through the static. "Human fleet, you don't understand. The Devourers adapt to any attack. They've absorbed our quantum disruptors, our plasma cannons, our gravity wells. Whatever you're planning, they'll just—" "Relax, Commander," came Chen's voice, and there was something in it that made the hair on the back of necks across 12 different species stand up. It was the sound of someone who had looked into the abyss and decided to punch it in the face. "They can adapt to energy weapons, right? They can absorb kinetic impacts and feed on exotic matter?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you." "Good to know," Chen replied, and the smile was audible in her voice. "Boys and girls, you heard the briefing. They can adapt to anything we've got except for one thing. Execute Operation Newton's Gift." The human fleet began to move, and their formation was nothing like the careful battle lines and protective spheres favored by collective military doctrine. Instead, they spread out in a pattern that looked almost random, ships peeling off in every direction like seeds scattered by wind. "What are they doing?" Commander Vexana chittered nervously. "That formation will leave them vulnerable to concentrated attack. The Devourers will cut through them like—" She never finished the sentence. The first human ship reached the edge of the Devourer swarm and immediately opened fire. But instead of the expected energy beams or exotic matter projectors, what emerged from the human vessel was something that made every tactical computer in the War Council chamber throw error messages. Rocks. The humans were shooting rocks. Not sophisticated gravitational projectiles or compressed matter slugs or quantum-enhanced kinetic penetrators. Actual rocks. Chunks of asteroid material, iron ore, and what appeared to be compressed industrial waste, all hurled at significant fractions of the speed of light. The Devourer swarm reacted instantly, as it always did. Defensive fields activated, adaptive armor shifted to absorb kinetic impacts, and feeding tentacles reached out to consume the incoming projectiles. And the rocks went right through them. Because they weren't weapons, they were just rocks. There was nothing for the Devourers to adapt to, nothing exotic to absorb, no energy signature to analyze and counter. They were simple kinetic energy delivered via simple matter moving really, really fast. The first impact sent shock waves through the swarm. The second tore a hole clean through 3 Devourer organisms. By the 10th, the swarm was writhing in what could only be described as confusion. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Thorne. "The Devourers should be adapting. They should be developing defenses against kinetic impact." "How do you develop defenses against rocks moving at 30% light speed?" asked Chen's voice cheerfully over the comm. "It's like trying to evolve armor against getting hit by a mountain. Physics is physics, no matter how fancy your biology gets." The human ships continued their seemingly chaotic dance, and now the pattern became clear. They weren't randomly positioned at all. They were creating overlapping fields of fire that left the Devourers nowhere to run. Every time the swarm tried to concentrate on one human vessel, 3 others would appear from unexpected angles, hurling their primitive but devastating payload. More humans were arriving by the minute, their ships dropping out of FTL travel in a steady stream. Each one carried the same payload. Millions of tons of the most basic matter in the universe, accelerated to horrifying speeds. "Where are they getting all those rocks?" Captain Mabala asked in wonder. As if in answer, long-range sensors detected massive mining operations throughout the system. Human ships were strip-mining asteroids in real time, processing raw material and feeding it directly to their kinetic launchers. They had turned the entire Kepler 442 system into an ammunition factory. "The Devourers are trying to retreat," reported one of the Karathi observers, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're actually pulling back." It was true. For the first time since the Devourer War began, the enemy was retreating. The massive swarm was contracting, trying to form a defensive sphere, but the humans weren't letting them. Every time the creatures tried to group together, a new wave of kinetic projectiles would smash into them, breaking up their formation. Admiral Chen's voice came through one more time, now addressing the War Council directly. "Galactic representatives, this is Admiral Chen. We've got the Devourers contained for now, but we're going to need about 6 more hours to finish the job. I know some of you have fleets en route. Tell them to stay back. This is about to get really ugly." "Admiral," Zethkari managed to say, finding his voice at last. "How is this possible? Your species was pre-contact just decades ago. How did you build a fleet capable of this?" Chen's laugh was warm and entirely human. "Ambassador, when you've spent your entire evolutionary history throwing rocks at things that wanted to eat you, you get pretty good at it. We just scaled up a bit." The tactical display showed the Devourer swarm continuing to contract under the relentless human bombardment. What had seemed impossible just hours ago was happening before their eyes. The unstoppable force that had consumed civilizations was being beaten back by the most primitive weapons imaginable, delivered with technological precision. "This is incredible," whispered Commander Vexana. "They're actually winning." "Not just winning," added Admiral Thorne, studying his instruments in amazement. "They're hurting them. Look at the pattern of their attacks. They're driving the Devourers toward that gas giant." He was right. The seemingly random human assault was actually a carefully coordinated effort to push the swarm toward the largest planet in the system. As they watched, the Devourers found themselves backed against the massive world's gravity well, trapped between crushing gravitational forces and the endless rain of human projectiles. Admiral Chen's voice came through one final time, and now there was something different in her tone. Not the casual confidence from before, but the grim determination of someone about to do something necessary but terrible. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Operation Clean Sweep. Authorization Omega 77. The human fleet suddenly stopped firing rocks. Instead, every ship in the armada turned toward the gas giant and began accelerating. Not toward the Devourers, but toward the planet itself. "What are they doing?" gasped Captain Mabala. "They'll be destroyed by the gravitational shear." But the humans weren't heading for the gas giant's surface. They were heading for its upper atmosphere, where they released something that made every advanced civilization in the galaxy question everything they thought they knew about warfare. They dropped rocks, not small ones this time. Massive chunks of planetary core material, each one the size of a city, all carefully calculated to reach terminal velocity in the gas giant's enormous gravitational field. The asteroids fell like the judgment of gods, each impact generating energies that turned the gas giant's atmosphere into a stellar furnace. The Devourer swarm, trapped between the planet and the human fleet, was caught in an artificial meteor storm that made their worst nightmares seem like gentle rain. Within minutes, it was over. The Devourers, Creatures that had consumed entire star systems were reduced to scattered organic matter drifting through space. The unstoppable force had been stopped by the simple application of gravity, velocity, and really big rocks. The silence that followed was broken by a single transmission from the Korathi colony ships. "Human fleet, this is impossible to believe. How do we thank you?" Admiral Chen's response was typically human, carrying warmth and humor even after such a display of devastating efficiency. "No thanks necessary, Commander. We heard you say you needed help, and we said we've got this." That's what neighbors do. As the War Council chamber slowly filled with the sounds of celebration from a dozen different species, Zethkari stared at the tactical display, where the human fleet was already beginning cleanup operations. Ships moved efficiently through the debris field, scanning for survivors and processing the remaining devourer material to ensure nothing could regenerate. "Ambassador," asked Commander Vexana quietly, "what kind of species turns the entire universe into a weapon?" Zethkari's crystalline skin shifted through several thoughtful colors before settling on a deep blue that indicated profound respect mixed with healthy caution. "The kind," he said slowly, "that spent millions of years as prey animals learning to throw rocks at predators until they figured out how to throw planets." He paused, watching as human ships began the delicate process of evacuating Korathi civilians, their movements showing the same casual competence they had displayed in battle. "The kind that hears someone say, 'This is impossible,' and responds with, 'Hold my beer.'" The phrase didn't translate well into any of the alien languages present, but somehow every species in the room understood exactly what it meant. In the depths of space, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her crews work. Her tactical officer approached with a status report. "Ma'am, the Korathi evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule. No casualties among Allied forces. The devourer threat in this system has been neutralized." Chen nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "Good work, Lieutenant, but keep the fleet on alert. Something this big doesn't just appear out of nowhere. There's a source somewhere, and until we find it—" She trailed off, staring at the star charts displayed on the main screen. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between stars, more devourers were breeding, growing, preparing to consume everything in their path. "Ma'am?" the lieutenant prompted. Chen smiled, and it was the smile of a species that had looked at the infinite cosmos and decided to make it their playground. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're going to need more rocks." 3 months after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Terran Defense Station, watching as ships from a dozen different species queued up for what the humans had casually named Rock School. The station itself was a testament to humanity's unique approach to engineering. While other species built their space habitats as elegant sculptures of metal and energy, the humans had essentially bolted engines to an asteroid and called it a day. It worked perfectly, which seemed to be the human approach to most things. "The Severian delegation is requesting another demonstration of kinetic bombardment techniques," reported Commander Jackson, Chen's aide. "They still can't believe we achieved a 97% hit rate against moving targets using unguided projectiles." Chen smiled, watching as a formation of Severian cruisers attempted to replicate the human tactic. Their shots were precise, mathematically perfect, and completely ineffective against the training drones that had been programmed with basic devourer evasion patterns. "The problem," she said, as much to herself as to Jackson, "is that they're thinking like engineers instead of hunters." It was true. Every other species in the galaxy had developed warfare as an extension of their technology. They built weapons like they built starships or habitats, elegant, efficient, and designed to overcome specific technical challenges. The humans had learned to fight by throwing rocks at animals that wanted to eat them. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display materialized to show Ambassador Zeth Kari, his crystalline skin flickering through patterns that indicated extreme urgency. "Admiral Chen," he began without preamble, "we have a problem. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something impossible." Chen raised an eyebrow. After 3 months of working with galactic civilization, she had learned that their definition of impossible was usually just something we haven't figured out how to do yet. "What kind of impossible, Ambassador?" "The kind that shouldn't exist according to every law of physics we know," Zeth Kari replied, his skin shifting to colors that hurt to look at. "We found the source of the Devourers. It's a planet." The statement hung in space between them like an unexploded bomb. Chen felt the familiar chill that ran down her spine whenever the universe decided to throw something genuinely terrifying at her species. "Explain." 3 days ago, our long-range scouts detected unusual gravitational anomalies in the Perseus void. When they investigated, Zeth Kari paused, and his skin went completely transparent, a sign of shock so profound that his body couldn't process it. "Admiral, they found a planet that's eating space itself." The holographic display shifted to show sensor readings that made Chen's head hurt. Mass readings that fluctuated wildly, energy signatures that defied classification, and at the center of it all, a world that seemed to pulse with malevolent hunger. "The planet has a circumference of approximately 40,000 kilometers, Zeth Kari continued. "But its mass—" He stopped, checking his readings again as if hoping they would change. "Its mass is equivalent to a neutron star. The gravitational distortions it creates are tearing holes in space-time itself, and from these holes the Devourers emerge." Chen studied the data, her tactical mind automatically beginning to formulate approaches and strategies. Most of them ended with variations of "everyone dies horribly," but that was just a starting point. "How many?" "Millions," whispered Zeth Kari. "Possibly billions. The planet is spawning them continuously. Every minute that passes, another swarm large enough to consume a star system emerges from those spatial tiers. And they're heading toward inhabited space?" "Not just inhabited space, Admiral. They're heading everywhere, in every direction, as if the planet is trying to consume the entire galaxy." Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Behind her, Commander Jackson was already running tactical simulations, his face growing paler with each calculation. "Ma'am," Jackson said quietly, "even if we mobilized every ship in human space, along with every allied fleet, the numbers don't work. We could maybe handle a dozen swarms if we caught them separately. But millions, all at once?" Chen nodded. She had reached the same conclusion. This wasn't a battle problem. This was an extinction event waiting to happen. "Ambassador," she said finally, "I need to speak with the Galactic Council. Emergency session. How quickly can you arrange it?" "The Council is already in permanent emergency session," Zeth Kari replied. "They've been debating response options for the past 72 hours. The consensus is, let me guess, evacuation to the Andromeda Galaxy? Actually, they're considering surrender. There are those who believe the Devourer intelligence might be reasoned with." Chen stared at the hologram for a moment, then began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then built into the kind of laughter that comes from staring into the abyss and realizing the abyss is probably flammable. "Admiral?" Zeth Kari's skin shifted to confused patterns. "Have I said something amusing?" "Ambassador," Chen said, wiping tears from her eyes. "They want to negotiate with a planet that eats space-time? The philosophical implications suggest that any intelligence capable of such reality manipulation might be beyond our comprehension, but not beyond our ability to communicate with." Chen's laughter stopped abruptly. In its place came the cold, calculating expression that her crew had learned meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Set up the emergency session, Ambassador. I have an idea. Admiral, I feel obligated to point out that the combined fleets of 12 species have been unable to develop any viable assault plan. The planet's gravitational field would tear apart any ship before it got within weapons range. Its spatial distortions make faster-than-light travel impossible within 3 light-years. And even if somehow we could approach it, what weapons could possibly affect something that massive? Chen smiled, and Commander Jackson unconsciously took a step backward. Ambassador, you're still thinking like an engineer. I need you to think like a human. 2 hours later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive chamber, their various forms of distress communication creating a symphony of fear. At the center of it all, Admiral Chen sat calmly at the human delegation table, apparently taking notes on a piece of paper. The actual paper was what had everyone confused. In a galaxy where information was stored in quantum matrices and holographic databases, the human admiral was using a writing implement to make marks on processed plant matter. Several species found it so primitive it was almost insulting. Chancellor Mordesh of the Hegemony Council called for order with a harmonic resonance that translated as barely controlled panic. Fellow beings, we face the end of all things. This devourer planet, designated as Entity Prime, represents a threat beyond our ability to comprehend, much less combat. Our finest military minds have concluded that conventional warfare is impossible. The mathematical certainty is absolute, added Grand Admiral Tisek of the Void Runners. Entity Prime's mass creates a gravity well that would crush any known material at a distance of 50,000 kilometers. Its spatial distortions prevent any form of faster-than-light attack, and its continuous spawning of devourers means that even a successful assault would be overwhelmed by reinforcements. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several species had already begun making plans for exodus fleets to carry their populations to other galaxies. Chancellor Mordesh gestured toward the human delegation. Admiral Chen, your species has demonstrated remarkable ingenuity in combat scenarios. Do you have any input on this situation? Chen stood up, still holding her piece of paper. Every eye, sensor, and perception organ in the chamber focused on her. Actually, yes. I have a plan. The murmurs died instantly. The problem, Chen continued, is that everyone's thinking about this like it's a military target, but it's not. It's a physics problem. She activated a holographic projector, displaying a simplified model of Entity Prime and its gravitational effects. This planet has the mass of a neutron star packed into the volume of a terrestrial world. Do you know what that means? That it's impossible to approach or attack, stated Admiral Tisek flatly. No, Chen replied, her smile becoming predatory. It means it's unstable. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Entity Prime is held together by forces we don't understand, probably related to whatever exotic matter allows it to spawn the devourers. But exotic matter or not, it's still subject to basic physics, and basic physics says that much mass in that small A space should either collapse into a black hole or explode like a supernova. Commander Vexana clicked her mandibles nervously. Are you suggesting we somehow destabilize the planet? The energy requirements alone would be astronomical if we tried to do it from the outside, Chen agreed. But what if we didn't attack the planet? What if we attacked the space around it? She manipulated the holographic display, showing Entity Prime surrounded by a network of gravitational distortions. The planet creates tears in space-time to spawn the devourers. Those tears are the pressure release valves keeping the planet stable. What happens if we seal them? The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Zethkari spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. The gravitational forces would have nowhere to go. The planet would collapse into a black hole or tear itself apart trying, Chen finished. Either way, No more devourers. But how could we possibly seal rifts in space-time itself? Asked Captain Mambala. Such technology is beyond even our most advanced civilizations. Chen held up her piece of paper. On it, she had drawn a simple diagram that looked like a child's sketch of the solar system. We don't seal them. We plug them. I don't understand, admitted Chancellor Mordesh. Think of Entity Prime like a balloon with holes in it. The holes let out pressure, keeping the balloon from bursting. If you plug the holes... Chen made a gesture with her hands that every species in the room understood instinctively. Pop. But what could possibly be used to plug tears in space-time? Chen's smile became absolutely terrifying. Something really, really big moving really, really fast. The implication hit the council like a physical blow. Species across the chamber began agitated discussions in a dozen different languages. You're suggesting, Admiral Tysek said slowly, that we use kinetic bombardment against the spatial tiers themselves? Not just kinetic bombardment, Chen corrected. Planetary kinetic bombardment. We find a suitable uninhabited world, strap engines to it, and ram it down Entity Prime's throat at a significant fraction of light speed. The chamber erupted. Half the species present began arguing that such a plan was impossible. The other half argued that it was insane. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down. Admiral, Chancellor Mordesh said finally, setting aside the astronomical engineering challenges, where would you find a planet willing to serve as ammunition? Chen's expression softened slightly, showing something that might have been sadness mixed with determination. Earth. The single word hit the chamber like a neutron bomb. In the stunned silence that followed, Chen continued. My homeworld has a mass of approximately 6 times 10 to the 24th kilograms. Its composition is ideal for high-velocity impact, and thanks to our recent expansion into space habitats, we can relocate the population. You're talking about destroying your own planet, whispered Captain Mabala, her bioluminescence flickering in distress. Your birth world, your history, everything your species has ever known. To save everything everyone has ever known, Chen replied quietly. It's not a decision we take lightly, but Earth is just rock and metal and water. Home is wherever humans are. Ambassador Zeth Kari's skin had gone completely white, a color that indicated emotions beyond the range of normal crystalline expression. Even if your people agreed to such a sacrifice, the technical challenges are staggering. Moving a planet at relativistic speeds, maintaining course over interstellar distances, timing the impact, would require the combined resources and knowledge of every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy, Chen agreed. That's why I'm not talking to just the military commanders. I'm talking to all of you. She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every representative present. 3 months ago, you thought it was impossible to defeat the Devourers. Then humans showed up with rocks and physics. Now you think it's impossible to move a planet. But impossible is just another word for something no one's figured out how to do yet. Chancellor Mordesh leaned forward. And if this plan fails, if Earth misses its target or the impact doesn't destabilize Entity Prime? Chen shrugged, the gesture somehow managing to convey both casual confidence and absolute determination. Then we're no worse off than we are now, except we'll have the most epic crater in galactic history. But if it works... She activated the hologram again, showing Entity Prime colliding with a relativistic planetoid. The simulation showed the immediate collapse of the spatial tiers, followed by a cascade failure that reduced the Devourer spawning world to its component atoms. If it works, we save the galaxy, and all it costs is one small blue planet that taught its children how to throw rocks at the dark. The vote was unanimous. As the council session dissolved into a frenzy of planning committees and engineering consultations, Chen stood quietly at her table, looking at her simple diagram. Commander Jackson approached, his expression troubled. "Ma'am, are you sure about this? Earth isn't just our homeworld, it's everything we are. Chen folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her uniform pocket. Jackson, Earth gave us two things that matter: the will to survive and the intelligence to figure out how. As long as humanity exists, Earth exists. The rest is just gravity and geology. She paused, watching as alien engineers began calculating trajectories that would turn her world into the largest bullet ever fired. Besides, she added with a grin that would have made her prehistoric ancestors proud, what better way to honor a planet that taught us to throw rocks than to throw it at the biggest target in the universe? 6 months later, Earth hung in space like a blue marble wrapped in steel cables and fusion engines. The planet that had given birth to humanity was now the most heavily modified world in galactic history, transformed into a weapon of unprecedented scale by the combined efforts of 47 different species. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the command ship Inevitable, watching her homeworld through tears she refused to acknowledge. Earth was barely recognizable. Massive thruster arrays covered entire continents. The atmosphere had been stripped away and stored in pressurized tanks. The oceans had been frozen into ice armor that would help the planet survive its journey through interstellar space. "Final evacuation transports are clear," reported Commander Jackson, his voice carefully neutral. "Population transfer to the Titan colonies is complete. Earth is ready for departure." Chen nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Behind her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Most of them had been born on Earth. All of them were watching their world become ammunition. "Admiral," came a gentle voice from the communications station. "The Galactic Council is requesting final confirmation for Operation Rock Bottom." The name had been Chen's suggestion, and somehow it had stuck. 47 species working together to throw a planet at an enemy that ate reality itself, and they'd named it after a human idiom for hitting the lowest possible point. "This is Admiral Chen," she said, activating the fleet-wide comm. "All stations, this is your final confirmation for Operation Rock Bottom. Earth departure is authorized. May the universe forgive us for what we're about to do." The thruster arrays ignited in sequence, each burst of fusion fire bright enough to temporarily blind unprotected sensors. Earth shuddered, fought against its own gravity, and then began to move. It started slowly. A planet doesn't accelerate quickly, even with engines the size of mountain ranges. But as the hours passed, Earth began to pick up speed, leaving its orbit for the first time in 4.5 billion years. "Velocity nominal," reported the navigation officer. "Current acceleration holding steady at 0.001 gravities. Estimated time to relativistic velocity, 14 months. 14 months to turn humanity's birth world into a bullet traveling at 30% of the speed of light. 14 months to cross the galaxy and reach Entity Prime. 14 months to either save civilization or create the most expensive failure in history." As Earth began its long journey into darkness, Chen made her way to the ship's communications center. There was one more thing she needed to do. The quantum transmission array connected her to the Terran Defense Network, scattered across 100 worlds and space stations. One by one, the faces of humanity's leaders appeared on her screen. Some were angry. Some were sad. All of them understood the magnitude of what they were attempting. "Status report, Admiral," said President Martinez from New Geneva Station. "Earth is en route," Chen replied. "All systems nominal. The Galactic Council's monitoring stations confirm trajectory and velocity. We're committed." "And the Devourer activity?" Chen's expression darkened. "Increasing. Entity Prime is spawning more swarms every day. Intelligence estimates we're facing over 200 active swarms now, all heading toward inhabited systems. If we don't stop this at the source, we'll be fighting an impossible war forever," finished General Hassan from the Mars Command Center. "Admiral, I hope you know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing, General. I'm throwing the biggest rock in human space at something that needs to stop existing. It's the most human solution possible to an impossible problem." Dr. Sarah Kim's face appeared on the screen, calling from the research station orbiting Jupiter. "Admiral, the physics models are still showing some uncertainty about the collision effects. There's a non-zero chance that destabilizing Entity Prime could create a cascade reaction that affects nearby systems." "How non-zero?" 12% chance of localized space-time distortion. 3% chance of creating a temporary wormhole. Less than 1% chance of accidentally creating a second black hole. Chen was quiet for a moment. "And the chance of success? If we hit our target at the calculated velocity and angle, 91% chance of complete destabilization of Entity Prime. The spatial tiers will collapse, the devourer spawning will stop, and the planet will either become a black hole contained within its own event horizon or simply tear itself apart at the subatomic level." "I'll take those odds," Chen said. "Any other business?" President Martinez leaned forward. "Admiral, I need to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain this is our only option? Earth is irreplaceable." Chen looked out at the stars, thinking about a blue world that had taught a species of clever apes to dream of reaching them. "Mr. President, Earth gave us everything we needed to survive in a hostile universe. It taught us to be curious, to be stubborn, and to throw rocks at anything that threatened us. Now the biggest threat in galactic history is threatening everything we've ever known or ever will know. Earth would want to be thrown at it." The transmission ended, and Chen made her way to the ship's recreation center. It was the closest thing to Earth she had left. Artificial gravity, recycled atmosphere, and a small garden where someone had managed to grow tomatoes in artificial soil. She wasn't surprised to find most of her senior staff there, staring at the single small window that showed Earth in the distance. The planet was already just a dot of light against the stars, engines flaring like a mechanical comet. "Admiral," said Dr. Vance, the ship's chief science officer, "I've been running additional calculations on the impact scenario. There's something else we need to consider." "What kind of something?" "The exotic matter that Entity Prime uses to create spatial tiers. It's not like anything we've ever encountered. It might be what's holding the planet together despite its impossible mass. When Earth impacts, the exotic matter will be disrupted," Chen finished. "Potentially released in large quantities." "Yes, ma'am. We don't know what happens when that much exotic matter becomes uncontained. It could dissipate harmlessly, or it could—" "Could what, Doctor?" Dr. Vance hesitated. "It could fundamentally alter the physics of local space, change the laws of reality in unpredictable ways." Chen stared out the window at her distant homeworld. "Any chance those changes could be beneficial?" "Unknown, ma'am. We're dealing with forces beyond our current understanding of physics." "Then we'll deal with whatever happens when it happens," Chen said firmly. "That's what humans do. We improvise." The months passed slowly. Earth accelerated steadily, its velocity climbing toward the impossible speeds required for the mission. Behind it, the solar system seemed strangely empty. Mars looked lonely without its blue companion. The moon, left behind in Earth's original orbit, wandered aimlessly through space. But throughout human space, something remarkable was happening. The species that had given up its homeworld was not mourning. They were preparing. Shipyards worked around the clock building new vessels. Colonies expanded to accommodate Earth's refugees. Children born on asteroid habitats and artificial worlds learned about a blue planet they would never see, except as a weapon flying toward their salvation. Admiral Chen received regular reports on devourer activity. The swarms were spreading across the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems went dark. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years vanished overnight. But the attacks were becoming more frantic, more desperate, as if Entity Prime sensed what was coming. "Admiral," Commander Jackson reported one day, his voice tense with excitement. "Long-range sensors are detecting something unusual. Entity Prime is changing." Chen hurried to the bridge, where the tactical display showed their target system. Entity Prime was still over 6 months away, but their sensors were good enough to detect major changes. "The spatial tears are becoming more frequent," reported the sensor operator, "and larger. It's like the planet is trying to spawn as many devourers as possible before we arrive," Chen finished. "It knows we're coming." The implications were staggering. Entity Prime wasn't just a mindless force of consumption. It was intelligent enough to recognize a threat and respond accordingly. "Ma'am," Jackson said quietly, "if it's that intelligent, is there any chance it might try to negotiate? Or defend itself?" Chen studied the sensor readings, watching as spatial tears opened and closed around the enemy planet, like wounds in reality. "Jackson, if something was throwing a planet at you, would you try to talk it out of the idea?" "Probably not. Ma'am, Entity Prime has consumed hundreds of worlds, billions of lives. It's had plenty of opportunities to communicate, and instead it chose to keep eating. No, Commander. Whatever intelligence it possesses, it's not interested in coexistence." As if to prove her point, the sensors detected a new swarm emerging from Entity Prime. This one was different from the others, larger, more cohesive, and heading directly toward the approaching Earth. "Interdiction swarm," breathed Dr. Vance. "It's sending defenders to stop us." Chen studied the trajectory calculations. The swarm would intercept Earth in approximately 4 months, while the planet was still 2 months away from optimal impact velocity. "How many?" she asked. "Conservative estimate? 10 million individual devourers, possibly more." The bridge fell silent. 10 million devourers was enough to consume a star system. Against Earth, even an Earth armored in ice and defended by the combined fleets of galactic civilization, it would be a massacre. Chen walked to the window and looked out at Earth, still visible as a bright dot in the distance. 47 different species had worked together to turn humanity's homeworld into a weapon. Trillions of beings were depending on this insane plan to work. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen," she said, activating the fleet-wide comm. "We have a problem, but it's the kind of problem humans were born to solve. Entity Prime is sending everything it's got to stop us. That means we're doing something right." She paused, watching as the escort fleet began adjusting their formations around Earth. "To all Allied ships, thank you for helping us get this far. But from this point forward, this is a human problem requiring a human solution. We're going to do what we always do when something tries to stop us from throwing rocks at our enemies." "What's that, Admiral?" asked someone on an open channel. Chen smiled, and it was the smile of a species that had looked at the infinite cosmos and decided to make it their playground. "We're going to throw bigger rocks." The next 4 months were the longest in human history. Earth continued its acceleration toward Entity Prime, defended by a fleet that grew smaller every day as the Devourer interdiction swarm closed in. Battle after battle raged in the space around humanity's homeworld, with ships from dozens of species sacrificing themselves to protect a planet flying toward its own destruction. Admiral Chen commanded the defense from the inevitable, coordinating attacks against creatures that defied every law of physics and biology. The Devourers adapted to every weapon, absorbed every energy attack, and kept coming with the relentless hunger that had consumed entire civilizations. But they had never faced rocks thrown by humans. The escort fleet had been equipped with the same kinetic launchers that had proven so effective at Kepler 442b, but scaled up to handle the increased threat. Asteroids, space debris, and industrial waste flew through space at relativistic velocities, punching through devourer swarms like bullets through tissue paper. Earth is at 87% of optimal velocity. reported Commander Jackson during one of the few quiet moments between battles. Impact in 6 days. Chen nodded, watching as another wave of devourers died under human kinetic fire. The interdiction swarm was down to less than half its original size, but so was their defensive fleet. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from Entity Prime. It's in English." Every head on the bridge turned toward the comm station. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was human, or something doing a perfect imitation of human speech patterns. But there was something wrong with it, something hungry and vast that made everyone who heard it take an unconscious step backward. "Admiral Chen of the species called human. This is the entity you designate as Prime. I offer terms for negotiation." Chen exchanged glances with her bridge crew. After 6 months of silence, Entity Prime was finally talking. The question was whether humanity was interested in listening. "This is Admiral Chen," she replied. "What terms?" "Withdraw your projectile. Allow normal consumption to resume. In exchange, I will preserve your species. You will be granted 1-star system where you may exist indefinitely under my protection." The offer hung in space like a poisoned gift. 1-star system for humanity, while the rest of the galaxy was consumed. Survival, but only as pets of a cosmic horror. Chen looked out at Earth, now glowing with heat friction from its journey through the interstellar medium. Her homeworld, transformed into a bullet aimed at the heart of darkness. "Counteroffer," she said. "You stop eating the universe, and we won't hit you with a planet." The thing that called itself Entity Prime was silent for several seconds. When it spoke again, the hunger in its voice had been replaced by something like amusement. "You are interesting. Your species shows promise. But you cannot comprehend what you are attempting to destroy. I am not merely a planet. I am a nexus, a doorway to dimensions where matter has different meanings. Destroy me, and you risk unmaking reality itself." Chen felt Jackson tense beside her. If Entity Prime was telling the truth. "Maybe," she admitted, "but if we let you keep eating everything, reality gets unmade anyway. At least this way we go down fighting." Admirable, but futile. Observe. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. More swarms were emerging from Entity Prime. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. Enough devourers to darken star systems. "Every swarm I have ever created still exists within me," Entity Prime continued. "Every world I have consumed feeds my power. You see now the futility of your gesture?" Chen stared at the display, watching as the numbers climbed higher and higher. Earth was still 3 days out from impact, and they were facing enough devourers to consume entire galactic sectors. "Jackson," she said quietly, "send a message to all human forces. Operation Last Stand is authorized." "Ma'am." Chen's smile was sad and proud and absolutely determined. "Tell them it's time to show the universe what humans do when something tries to stop us from saving everyone we've ever cared about." The final battle began with Earth still 72 hours from impact. It was humanity against the collected appetite of the cosmos, fought in the space between stars with weapons that turned physics into art and desperation into defiance. The devourers came in waves that blocked out the light of distant suns. They adapted to every weapon, absorbed every attack, and kept coming with the patient hunger of entropy itself. But the humans kept fighting with the stubborn refusal to quit that had carried them from cave paintings to star travel. Admiral Chen watched her fleet die ship by ship, buying time and distance for Earth to reach its target. Species that had been strangers 6 months ago died alongside humans, united in the desperate hope that one blue world might save them all. 60 hours to impact, Jackson reported. his voice hoarse from coordinating the defense. Earth is at 94% of optimal velocity. How many ships do we have left? 37 human vessels, 12 allied. Chen nodded. 49 ships against the appetite of the universe. It would have to be enough. That's when Earth itself joined the battle. The planet had been equipped with its own kinetic launchers, scaled up to sizes that defied engineering logic. Now, as the Devourers closed in for the final assault, Earth began to throw pieces of itself at the enemy. Mountains launched into space at relativistic velocities. Chunks of the ocean floor accelerated to speeds that turned ice into antimatter on impact. Earth was literally throwing itself apart to clear a path to its target. "Magnificent," whispered Dr. Vance, watching as humanity's homeworld consumed itself in the service of the species it had birthed. Earth is sacrificing itself to ensure it reaches Entity Prime. On the tactical display, the Devourer swarms began to falter. They could adapt to weapons, but they couldn't adapt to a planet that was willing to destroy itself to complete its mission. Earth carved through the interdiction force like a comet made of pure determination. 12 hours to impact, Jackson reported. Earth has sufficient mass remaining for mission completion. Chen opened a channel to Entity Prime. Still want to negotiate? The response came immediately, and now the hunger in the alien voice had been replaced by something like respect. Your species is remarkable. In all my eons of existence, I have never encountered beings willing to sacrifice their origin world for others they barely know. You honor the cosmos with your defiance. Does that mean you're going to stop eating everything? No. But when I have consumed all that is, I will remember your species with fondness. Chen laughed, the sound carrying across the bridge like a bell. Entity Prime, you've made one critical error in your calculations. What error? You assume we're going to lose. Earth struck Entity Prime exactly on target, traveling at 31% of the speed of light. The impact was visible from 3 galaxies away. Where Entity Prime had been, space itself convulsed, twisted, and then collapsed into something that wasn't quite a black hole and wasn't quite normal matter. The spatial tiers that had spawned the Devourers snapped closed like rubber bands. Reality rippled outward from the collision point, carrying changes that would puzzle physicists for the next 1,000 years. When the exotic energies finally dissipated, Entity Prime was gone. In its place was something new, a region of space where the laws of physics were subtly different, where matter was slightly more stable, where the universe seemed a little more inclined toward life rather than entropy. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the inevitable, staring at the display that showed empty space where the greatest threat in galactic history had been. "Ma'am," Jackson said quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from all over the galaxy. The Devourer swarms. They're just stopping. All of them." Chen nodded. Without Entity Prime to direct them, the Devourers were reverting to simple matter, drifting through space like the remnants of a bad dream. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Chen looked out at the stars, thinking about a blue world that had given everything to save them. "Set course for home, Commander. We have a solar system to rebuild and a universe to explore." "Ma'am?" "Earth is gone." Chen smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a smile of pure joy rather than determination. "Jackson, Earth was never a place. Earth was an idea. The idea that no matter how big or dark or hungry the universe gets, there will always be someone willing to throw rocks at it until it learns to behave." She activated the fleet-wide comm one final time. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen. Mission accomplished. Earth has done what Earth does best. It taught the universe a lesson about what happens when you threaten Earth's children. Now let's go build some new worlds and find some new rocks to throw." As the human fleet began its journey home, signals were already reaching Earth throughout the galaxy. From species that had thought themselves doomed came messages of gratitude, wonder, and an urgent desire to learn this thing called human engineering. The galaxy had been saved by the most primitive weapons imaginable, deployed with technological precision by a species that had learned to survive by throwing rocks at anything that threatened them. And in the depths of space where Entity Prime had been, new stars were already beginning to form. The exotic matter released by Earth's impact was encouraging stellar formation, seeding the cosmos with the raw materials for countless worlds where future civilizations might someday learn to look up at the stars and dream of throwing rocks at them. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all.